watching this video, you're forced to listen to my ramblings and my wafflings today. So, I've been wondering today, what are we as individuals? We're not our bodies, because, if your arm gets cut off, the arm is not you anymore. And our bodies change, and our cells regenerate and grow, and physical appearance alters over the years, so we're not like our bodies. And we're also not our minds, because our interests, likes, dislikes, tastes, which I guess is the same thing, our opinions, those all change a lot. The way we look at ourselves and people around us changes. Our thoughts are constantly changing, so that's not really us either, because as those things alter, we still have a sense of us, and it's clearly not tied to any of those things. It's not our personality, because our personalities evolve and alter over the years too, and we still are us, so it's not bound up in that. So the only thing I'm left with is just a general consciousness, really, really loose consciousness, not defined or characterized by anything in particular. And I guess that is what separates us from corpses, which exist in body, in the same way, but they lack, consciousness. And if somebody's in a coma, if somebody's in a vegetative state, because if you're in a coma, you still have thoughts. If you're in a vegetative state, from what we understand, you don't have thoughts or opinions or views of anything anymore. But the people around you who look at you still say that this is you. But then I guess other people say that there's nothing there, which is why assisted suicide is a thing. Well, no, it's not assisted suicide. What would you call that? If somebody's in a vegetative state and their wishes while they were alive and their will was that if that ever happened, that they'd be taken off life support. That's not assisted suicide. Assisted suicide is if you're really sick and your quality of life is so bad and you're in the hospital and you're just don't use these machines to prop up my existence. So, is it euthanasia? Is that the vegetative state dying thingy? I don't know. I haven't read up on the terms in a while. But you get what I'm saying. When somebody's in a vegetative state, your family still says you. They still look at you, but you can't respond or do anything. So maybe it's not appropriate to call a person in a vegetative state a you, because, I guess that's where the whole argument of them wanting to die, if that happens kind of thing, because you're not a you anymore. I guess the difference is consciousness then, because a person in a vegetative state, from what we understand, and I might be messing this all up, maybe I'm wrong. If so, don't listen to me. Or fight me in the comments! Just kidding, I don't participate in that. Consciousness then, I think, is what makes us us, and what makes a you. Because I know for myself, if I was in a vegetative state, unless there was a known cure, or we are pretty sure in 6 months they'll come back kind of thing. If there's no hope in sight that I will ever be able to function ever again, I would not want to live. Because that's not living, in my personal view. To me, that's not a quality of life. Because you can't do anything, and you probably aren't even thinking. Your body is just being propped up by machines. It's like an artificial existence. And that just seems such a pointless thing to me. I understand if you have a family who loves you very much and they're grieving, let's say you had an accident that rendered you in that state, I can understand how it'd be difficult to make rational decisions because you don't want to let that person go, but, you know, ultimately you should understand that that's no quality of way to be, and most people wouldn't want it to just keep existing, like they're just having their cells and their bodies propped up. There's nothing like left, there's no consciousness, there's no you. So that's what today I've decided that us is just consciousness, and it's not personality or interests or the mind or the body. It's just simply consciousness, which I guess we don't really understand very well. We know the things that support our consciousness interacting with those around us, but we don't really understand consciousness itself, or like how it just is. Hopefully someday we will develop our understanding of what that means and where it comes from and how that arises. But until then, we just have to, I guess, accept that we can observe things in this world, but not observe like their causes or understand where they come from. So I know this was like this is probably hard or not very fun to follow along with. It probably sounds like a bunch of spaced out dead air between ramblings that are incoherent, but you have to understand that my thought workings that I'm talking about now are things I've been thinking about for a long time. So this video right now is the culmination of a lot of different reflections, whereas for you, the viewer, all 30 of you, well actually only 10, I have 30 subscribers, but really only like 5 people watch my videos, which this isn't for them, I do this for me, but I've already talked about that. So for you 5 people, this probably seems disjointed, but for me, this video is the culmination of different musings and meditations put together. So when I was reflecting this morning, I came to the conclusion that a me or a you is just consciousness. So given that, what do we do with that? How are we to look at reality as it really is? How are we to be? Like, what kind of state are we supposed to exist in, like, perspective-wise? Given that we're just consciousness. And everything that we experience in this world, it seems like it's outside us. And these aren't my original thoughts. Don't think I'm super great and amazing and a wonderful philosopher. This is just literally me listening to lots of different lectures and thinkers and just putting my spin on it. Everything that happens around us is actually just like little firings in our brain and our nerves and different synapses going off. So literally all this stuff around us is only information internal. It's being interpreted. Anything we look at, listen to, sound we hear, food we taste, trees we touch, all that stuff is literally only inside our brains. And don't worry, this isn't going into a we're all in the Matrix kind of like nonsensical conspiracy theory way to look at the world. That's just what science is. Like, everything's up in our brains. So given that an us is just consciousness, and everything we experience is within our brains, within us, all external things are literally just our brains. Obviously they exist to send stimulus to the nerve receptors that send that information to the brain. Yeah, I get that, but in the end, what we experience itself, like the receivingness, is just the brain. So we're just an us in a brain. Like, we're just a consciousness that receives experiences through this physical mass in these bodies that we inhabit. So my point is our perspective is super important, because our perspective is all we actually have. If everything that we experience, joy and sorrow, if all of that is just interpretations of stimulus by our brain, it's just a consciousness interpreting data that's given to us through processes of our brain, then is all of our experience of suffering or pleasure, is that all in our control? Because obviously we can't control other people or things outside us, but we can control how we interpret the data that's given to us and how it affects us, and how our consciousness interprets what happens to us, how it makes us feel. All of our experiences are within us. So are we supposed to rise above negative circumstances in an awakened, alert kind of perspective, like a real awareness about the fact that everything is temporary, it doesn't last forever. Everything that happens is just interpreted in our brain, and that we're not really us, we're just a consciousness that may be temporary, it may go on. Nobody can prove one way or another. How are we supposed to rise above suffering? If suffering itself is just an interpretation of stimulus in our brain, and us is just a consciousness, how are we supposed to have the right kind of perspective to deal with and filter all this information that we're constantly taking in? You know, our minds are amazing and our bodies are amazing. Like, we can heal ourselves or make ourselves sick by what we focus on. And, you know, different people will take that fact to different degrees and claim different things, or, you know, be kind of crazy about it. But at the most neutral level, like, you know, if you're super stressed out and freaked out all the time, you're going to get sicker more often, because that kind of stress weakens your immune system. And if you're super, super happy and you're feeling really good, you get sick less often. I don't know, like, why or how. I'm sure somebody out there has the answers, but it's just how it is. Like, your mood, like, makes you a stronger, healthier person. And because everything is just in us, and us is just a consciousness, can we move beyond just physical illness in terms of transforming negative stimulus into positive ones? I know people have, like, all crazy woo-woo, like, yeah, you just think about this and you'll just get a bunch of money and have an amazing house and manifest all your dreams. Like, I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. People get so crazy about things. I just want to know, like, at the most basic, like, bare bones level, like, how can we have a life that's more enjoyable by having a perspective that rises above temporary circumstances? Ones that, yes, can be extreme and feel really sucky and can be stressful and weigh us down, but is there a perspective we can have that isn't bound in wishful thinking or just deluding ourselves or duping us into believing fanciful ideas? Can we really have an accurate, alert awareness and a proper perspective about our surroundings that gives us a more positive experience in life and helps us rise above negative circumstances? Is that something that we can do? I know we can do it on small levels, like if you're sick or whatever, like if you're super stressed out, you get sick. If you feel really good, you're more likely to be resistant to illness. And obviously you have to eat well and treat your body correctly. Like, you can't just be happy and then eat garbage. But, you know, eating garbage makes you feel bad, like, mood-wise. So I guess that plays a part. I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer. There might be. Maybe somebody's already worked all this out and written, like, an entire book about this, and I just don't know about it. Maybe there's another YouTube video about this. I'm just thinking out loud. And I hope that this is making sense. I know that when it comes to more abstract subject matter, it can be hard to be concise enough to express what you're thinking about to other people, because the concepts themselves aren't grounded in normal nouns. So it can be a more difficult process to undertake. Hopefully, I've expressed it adequately enough where you 5 people who are watching know what I mean and reflect on it yourself. Maybe you've heard of an answer to these things I'm asking about, or you have questions that are worth listening to, or something like that. I don't know. Hopefully this made us not feel so bad. Okay, bye.